Yes, my name is Eric Katz. I work on behalf of the FDOT Transportation Data and Analytics Office, and our primary role within the department is to install continuous count stations around the state. We manage those stations and we validate the data that comes in through those counters and then make sure that we report it to FHWA and ultimately to the public so that stakeholders, municipalities, cities, folks beyond FDOT have access to that data. So we are about 50 to 60 years into our motorized data collection program, and we're about 2 years complete on our non-motorized traffic monitoring program that we're still developing. It's a very exciting program. My role is to assist the department on determining where these count stations are going to be placed. It's a great, fun project, but also extremely daunting, as we literally have thousands and thousands of miles worth of bike lanes, shared paths, and trails to decide where these count stations are going to be placed. So StreetLight has been a great tool to use as we're trying to decide site selection throughout the state at the very, very beginning of our statewide program. So I'm going to be showing two examples of how I've been using the zone activity analysis. One for how we determine the site of a specific continuous count station, and also for short-term count stations. And just for everyone to understand, continuous count stations are on 24/7, 365. We have about 350 of those continuous count motorized counters around the state, and we have about 11 right now non-motorized counters installed thus far. So we still have many more installations to go. And in addition to continuous counters, we also have portable counts that we're also managing as well. So starting with the first scenario in regard to continuous counters, this map shows you the location. Those red stars represent the 11 counters that we have out in the field right now. And StreetLight has provided assistance on all of these site selections thus far. So I'm going to just zero in on one specific location, and that is the University Ave location located in the city of Gainesville. It's a very interesting location. Here it is zoomed in on the site, and it's right across the street from the University of Florida. It's one of the major university campuses within the state of Florida. Certainly a lot of bicycle pedestrian activity. And on this state road, there happens to be a bicycle pedestrian safety problem. There is a history of crashes that have led to either deaths or severe incapacitated crashes and injuries towards various bikes and peds along this corridor. So we want to make sure that we wanted to have a continuous count installation placed somewhere along this corridor. So we had worked closely with the city of Gainesville on getting some understandings of where that count station should be placed. So here's a location that's right by the stadium, the very popular football stadium for the university. So certainly gets a lot of bike ped traffic happening around games or during the week as well. So what I did was draw a zone activity gate on both ends of the corridor to make sure that I was getting the bike lanes, the sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. We can consider that a complete across the facility count. So there I manually drew the gate and was able to run the analysis on this location. And part of what we're trying to do, especially in the early stages of our program, is making sure that if we're going to go forward on having an investment of putting a continuous count station, one that cannot be moved, it gets physically inserted into the ground. So we got to be confident that there's actually going to be activity placed at that count station. So using this zone activity analysis tool, and here I am on the Viz3D screen, we were able to verify that the average daily count for all of 2018 and 2019, that's rolling all the months together for those 2 years, I was able to get a zone activity pedestrian index count of about 4,000 pedestrians per day, which is a very good number. That certainly would justify that this is a great place to have a counter, as we certainly can anticipate a steady stream of bike ped traffic to be occurring right here at this location. One of the other advantages of having the Viz3D tool is that we're able to see beyond just the volume count. We're able to see the trip duration, how long were the average trips, what's the trip speed. So many other attributes that come along with a zone activity analysis that I pass on to my managers and helps us have a confident decision of where that count station is to be placed. So we did move forward. So this was just my conceptual drawing of where that count station was to be placed. We handed that to our contractor. And this is very recent. This is just within the past couple weeks. We had that count station installed. So you can see that we have on both sides of the road 2 infrared counters, and we have on both sidewalks, we have one side is a wide shared path, and the other one is more of a standard sidewalk. We have loops that were inserted into the sidewalk so we can get the bicycle counts as well. So that site was selected using StreetLight Data to help us make that determination. So that was the first scenario. The second scenario has to do with short-term counters. So this map here shows you where we have deployed our short-term counters thus throughout the state. And those we are using a combination of bicycle tubes and portable infrared counters. So that's where all those purple dots represent. That's where this type of equipment was placed. Also helps us determine where we're going to be putting future continuous count stations. But sometimes, like I mentioned, we're still at the early stages of our program. There's still literally thousands of miles of area of canvas throughout the state to make these determinations. So zeroing in on the Panhandle region of Florida, also known as District 3, you can see that we've had a lot of activity in the Tallahassee capital region of the state. That is the location of where central office is for FDOT. So we've done a good amount of counting within that region, but you can see the rest of the Panhandle still needs attention, and particularly to this area of the Panhandle, which has a very popular bicycle facility known as 30A. Also known as the Timpucci Trail. We always get requests from local agencies saying that this is a very important facility to get some counts on. So we want to move forward on making determinations of where these count stations are to be placed. So locals provided us many, many locations to consider, more than we have resources or funding to be able to afford to have a very comprehensive short-term count deployment where we placed a whole bunch of tubes and infrared counters upon all these different dots here. Or from the comfort of my desk here, I was able to draw 22 zone activity gates along the corridor of the 30A facility. That is something I could not do in a short-term count. We wouldn't have the funding to be able to afford the staff time, the resources, and the equipment that it would be needed to do a comprehensive count such as this. So using StreetLight, I was able to, from the comfort of my desk, be able to run an analysis on all these different locations that local agencies are recommending for count stations. And using the Viz3D tool, you can see that there's a little bit of a heat map showing. And for the urban planning nerds on the call, this is the world famous Seaside planned community. So we can see that the 38 facility does go through Seaside as well. And it is a hot spot in regard to activity. Also in Rosemary Beach. So that's telling me that we're going to be focusing in our limited funds used for short-term counts, and it's going to be focusing somewhere around Rosemary Beach and the Seaside area. And then finally, once we do that short-term count, it will help us make a final decision on where a continuous count station will be placed. But this really helps us move forward in our site selection process of determining prioritizing locations for count stations, both on the short-term side and the continuous count side. So just to wrap up, regard to takeaways, I just started using StreetLight in March of this year, definitely when COVID hit. This was a time that I really dedicated time to learning the StreetLight software tool. So I feel like I've gotten very confident in the zone activity analysis, and it took a lot of practice. I've probably run about over 100 different separate types of analysis using zone activity. So I'm gotten very confident in it. And I've learned that it's okay to mess up an analysis every once in a while. You can always see through the metadata what analysis you did, and you can tweak your methodology a little bit more if you felt like it wasn't, you weren't receiving the results that you were trying to receive during your initial setup. So part of the house to do with asking a lot of questions. So whenever I run into a I feel like I'm stuck, I reach out to StreetLight, and StreetLight has done a great job of being very responsive and helping me along the way to get more confident with using the StreetLight tool. And I know that there's many other tools to use with StreetLight. I'm very looking forward to learning more of the type of capabilities and different types of analysis. It's been great to see the other analysis that some of my other colleagues have been using it for. So I would love to learn more, and this was great. So thank you to StreetLight for allowing me to share how I've been using StreetLight data.